Good to see everybody. It is past 5:30, so let's call this meeting to order and look back and forth between our documents so we can make sure we are stepping through it. So let's have the roll call.
Tony Allegretti.
Present.
Ricardo Diaz.
Here.
Scott Dossett.
Here.
Katrina Kendall.
Here.
Daryl Price.
Here.
All right. Well, as you know, I'm getting used to the rules of just following the procedure and things that I was not in charge with before. But one of those is that somebody must always be here when we have a meeting here in the chambers. So, or in the city building, I guess it doesn't have to be the chambers. But in any case, I'll be asking each one of us just to take a rotation. We would normally all be here, so if one of us is here, it fulfills the obligation and it opens up, especially the communication with Jason to do the technical side. I hope that the public that's also here also got through. Okay, we did have one emailed comment that we'll read at the appropriate time that you guys just got. We got it. The rules at the bottom of the agenda say that they should be submitted on the day of, and that's why. But I think it's appropriate to include them directly when we get there. Any other changes? We got this last week. We were tossing back and forth what to be on the agenda. This is where we finalized. Is everybody okay with this?
Yeah.
If so, then go ahead and put in a motion to approve it. Or somebody.
Motion to approve.
Second.
You? That was Tony and Daryl?
Yeah.
All right. I guess roll call again. Go ahead.
Tony Allegretti.
Yes.
Ricardo Diaz.
Yes.
Scott Dossett.
Yes.
Katrina Kendall.
Yes.
Daryl Price.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion passes. So we have an agenda. There are other items pending that we've been getting on email that they should get. We're slotting them in as we get as we get to having the information. Let's double check ourselves on the minutes that have been put together. They've been part of the packet. Several of you read them, I saw. And if it's inaccurate, well, any comments on them? July, August, and September minutes? Okay, can I get a motion to approve them then as they are?
Do you want to go one at a time or the whole group together?
I don't think we have any special need to do one at a time. Can you do all three in your motion?
Sure. I move that the board approve the minutes for our special meeting July 29, the regular meeting August the 26th, and the special meeting September the 3rd.
Right.
I'll second the motion.
And thank you, Tony. All right, roll call to approve these minutes.
Tony Allegretti.
Yes.
Ricardo Diaz.
Yes.
Scott Dossett.
Yes.
Katrina Kendall.
Yes.
Daryl Price.
Yes.
Excellent. So that's, just the background info business that, as it takes a little bit of time, I think it's starting to get us on the same page. As you know, I've been doing one-way emails to you about materials, but we have been so far behind that I think that after this meeting, we will have pieces in order so that we can start moving to the hearings, which is the first part of our constituted charge. So we have public participation, and I don't know if I have enough info myself. Jason, I'll call on whoever has or wants to speak, but I just don't see them.
Well, no one has raised their hand yet. It looks like Tracy Chong's hand just went up. Ricardo, for reference, if you go click on the participants window and you'll see panelists and then attendees tab, you'll want to click on the attendees tab and you can see the public.
I now see it. So we have 4 people and then your camera. So Tracy, and then who's got their computer handy? Tony, would you mind pulling up the Quaker comment too?
Oh, yeah, I can. You want me to read that in now?
Yeah, after Tracy, since we don't.
Okay, I've
All
got it. I'll pull that up.
All right, Ms. Chong, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I haven't actually prepared anything for today, but I just wanted to ask a question. So last on City Council, during the City Council meeting on Monday, there was the TASER review report by Scott Dossett as well as Lieutenant Searles. So I was wondering because during the January 22nd CPRB meeting where you guys had the TASER review, there was a case where there was kind of not enough video evidence, and Ricardo Diaz asked Lieutenant Searles whether there was squad cam footage, and if there was that footage, why wasn't it shown? And Searles kind of evaded the question and saying theoretically there should be, but he didn't know where the video was. And he said that he was going to follow up on it, and you guys during the motion said that you would like him to follow up on it and then produce the video if it's available. I was wondering if anyone had followed up on that or whether that's just another thing that's swept away. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because I think these are the tiny issues that often just get swept away, and that's why people are not held accountable. So he knows that if he just says, oh, okay, I'll look into it, and if no one actually takes the time to follow up on it and make sure he actually does it, then it's like, okay, I can just say that I'll look into it, but eventually it just gets forgotten. So anytime something like that happens, I really hope that there's someone on the committee who follows up and makes sure holds someone from the UPD to their word when they say they're going to produce a document, when they say they're going to look into it, and these kind of things should not just be left forgotten. So yeah, if anyone can comment on it, that'll be great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good question. We'll come back to it after we finish the public comment. It's okay. All right. Christopher Hansen, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so this is Christopher Hansen. I live in Urbana. I also didn't really prepare anything, but I just wanted to follow up on something Ms. Chong just said about your board asking for video for a particular event, and I do recall that. And Ms. Chong said, you know, these are tiny details that need to be followed up on. I don't see them as tiny details at all. If your board asks for video and the Urbana Police Department gets kind of strange and sketchy and dicey about it, that sounds to me like a door that needs to be opened. Not one that needs to be walked away from. So, and it's been all of my experience that when the city or city staff kind of get squirrely about providing some kind of type of record or document, the reason is usually because there's something bad in there that they don't want the public to see. So to me, that says, you know, go open that door. Don't walk away from it. A few other things I was asking Mikhail before when he was chair, and also Ricardo was included in that discussion. I've been asking if the board can release the January 29th appeals hearing recording. I think all that's required is you need, it was a closed session. All that's required is a vote by the board to release that, and we can see what happened in that hearing. I don't know why we wouldn't want to do that. I was the complainant, so there's really not a privacy issue there if I'm the one, you know, suggesting that it be released. The other issue I emailed the board about was kind of in the same vein, discussion of closed sessions. It's written in the CPRB ordinance that you're not allowed to talk about anything that happens in regards to complaints and closed sessions and appeals hearings. My understanding is that that type of restriction is entirely illegal. The city has no such power to restrict your speech outside of those closed sessions. You can talk about them all you want. That's my understanding. I mean, we have some legal expertise on the board, so I'd be interested to hear your response on that. And the last thing, I see you're going to talk about the first-hand account language again today. It sounds like we had two, or if you count Jane McClintock's attorney, 3 attorneys who were all disagreeing with James Simon on what that might mean. I don't know why this board feels it needs to ask permission of the city attorney to hold a point of view or make a determination on how they're going to proceed. If you guys think that first-hand account includes video, then that's how you proceed, and James Simon can go away. Your board exists solely for the purpose of questioning the conduct of city employees. You exist because we do not trust the city internally and the police department internally to gauge misconduct by those city employees. I don't find it at all appropriate for the city attorney to be pushing you guys around and telling you what to do. He's also a city employee, and we should expect that he is just as likely to commit misconduct and try to cover up misconduct as the police department is. So I don't know why he was really even included in that conversation. You guys should take your own stand on that. And I think that's all I'll say for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. All right. Anyone on the board? We have a few questions, and I'd like to at least put them forward as to where we are with them. I read somewhere that boards and councils don't have to address what the public says, and I find that distasteful. So we should at least have consideration of it and then implement it wherever it fits. That's part of the agenda. Does anybody want to address any one of these points first? Okay, 7 seconds. No, I, as you know, I'd like to put everything on the table as much as we can, and if it's unpleasant, it's unpleasant, but we move on. So let me put a couple of things partially addressing what was put forward. Let me start with the last one. We have put in the agenda, we started the discussion of first-hand account, and I would agree that we can say whatever we like. If council disagrees, they can change it. I think in our policy manual, as a couple of us are reviewing it, there's room for that. So when we come to that topic today, I hope we can put some kind of wording together that we can agree on and then forward the council for them, but we can operate until they tell us, no, we do respond to what the council ordinance might be. So that's where we're dealing with the first-hand account. And I must say other issues, as we review what was used as a policy manual for us for this board originally, I think that we have plenty of changes that we want to operate under, and we'll come back to that topic. But first I want to compile the comments and recommendations. So hopefully that's our next, at our next meeting, I hope that we have had, everybody has had the time to look at those. And that includes then some of this first-hand account and some of procedures for hearings as we're coming up on that topic today. I've been researching on what a closed session release means and what the repercussions are. I have posed a question to legal to say what prevents us from. Especially, I think at some meeting not too long ago with one of you, we had a discussion about if that meeting is recorded, we understand that the deliberation part is confidential. And if it's recorded, who's supposed to see it? If it's that private, who reviews it? Why does the record even exist if it's private in that way? So I don't know the answer to those questions. So I posed to legal what would bar us from releasing. And so I agree that we're here for the public's interest as far as offices are concerned. I don't agree that we can hold anybody on the city building accountable. In fact, it's a collaboration with them to get the information because they could tell us no. And if they could say no to certain things, do we have a legal right to push them? I don't know. But it doesn't seem to me like we have anything but what we were charged with, and they assist us in getting there, including the report, I think for TASER report. I don't know the question, Tracy, for that. I don't know the answer to that. I have asked that we put it forward. I think you're both correct. This is the kind of detail that has sometimes fallen through, and that's not adequate. So thank you, Scotty, for reporting to council. Do you want to put forward here a summary of, or a short version of what you reported to council? We had seen it, but I think it's appropriate for the record here to come back.
Sure. I kind of made a note to do this in announcements, but that's okay. Yeah, long council meeting, lots of public input vis-a-vis the potential changes to public input. So it was an interesting discussion to listen to. I pretty much told them the same thing that I told this board when I presented it. You know, numbers of reviews, kind of getting a feel, if you would, the street feel for the way the tasers were used. The facts that it didn't seem as if taser display escalated situations, and that people recognized them, and it probably increased compliance. And then noted in a summary, which Mary Alice Wu particularly was interested in, a couple of recommendations related to the policies and procedures manual for the CPRB, which was not amended to include the TASER implementation policy at all. And, you know, a few questions from council. They accepted the report, of course, precedent to my report. Rich Searles discussed the report from the UPD side. And of course, we always have a little bit of a paper chase in the context of counting because, well, first of all, there's always a little bit of lag in reporting. More importantly, and this, you know, speaks to some of the limitations that are perceived by community members, I think, including a couple of commentees tonight. If this material gets involved in a civil or criminal case, we're essentially locked out of it. So although that did not become any kind of a point of contention or debate or discussion amongst the council, that was some ground that Rich and I had to go over in the context of counts of displays and discharges and things like that. And for those of you that maybe weren't at that meeting or don't know, we have the sum total of 3 discharges that CPR has reviewed. One of those was a completion by a drive stun, which solely used as a technique is actually not allowed in our ordinance. And so that was an interesting one to kind of think through and discuss earlier on with everyone. Essentially, one of the taser contact probes found its mark and one didn't. And so the completion of the circuit was then done with the unit itself. Beyond that, there are 4 taser discharge incidences that are not yet in our purview because of the criminal civil lawsuit exclusion that we have. So, any questions? I'd be happy to try to answer.
I do have a question, Scott. We had seen it, last month, as you guys had gotten it through. The cases that get taken to court, where are they resolved? Because I haven't seen any of those resolved back. If they go to court, we don't see them again? Or is there a resolution that gets marked on our spreadsheet too of that case, please?
I can't answer that question. I think that's one of the major motivating factors for me to go through the process of writing into our existing 2012 policies and procedures manual a point about taser review, because that's going to be pretty much the working document that we go through to try to keep on track with things.
Okay, so making a note of it, I had asked Tony to look at it. I'm not going to ask you, Tony, for a report on it, but his eye is different and new to this board, and he had asked what else besides the regular training can I get oriented. And so I wanted a fresh eye for that, and I'd like to come back to it at the next meeting, starting out with his comments, because it creates other questions. And so we should put down the taser review part on that.
Okay, Ricardo. So just so I understand, you've asked Tony to undergo a review of that 2012 policy and procedures document?
To comment it as a new pair of eyes.
Cool.
We'd like to come back, though. I'd like to come back to it in just a minute so what's next for it as a group or a subcommittee. I got ahead on the agenda, and so
sure.
I just want to plant those ideas in your minds. And then let me see what else. So pending answer to Ms. Chung, closed session, we're dealing with first-hand account. Okay, so for me right now, we've started on the answers to our public. They have a chance at the end to come back to it too. So if it's okay with you guys, can we go through, 5 on the agenda, the items that we have pending, at least to get a bearing on where we are with the several other continuations. So 5D, status of the annual report for 2019. I'll just report back. I sent to you guys what we have in hand and asked for you guys to send questions and comments to it. It is very delayed, so I figured 1 more month is just as bad as the 10 months already, 9 months. But it seems to me that it should be also more complete. So that's the status of that item. Any questions or comments, go ahead and send them in still, because it just had some gaps that are going to be hard. My line in Spanish almost came out, which cuenta nueva, borrón y cuenta nueva. You start where you are with a new outlook to the future. I understand that feeling, but I think we have some accountability to do with that report, because we do have lots of, it's near history. We're doing better with 2020 as far as numbers. I'll come back to it in a minute, but recommendations to council first-hand account. That one's a little bit longer, so I'm going to wait for it a little bit. The status of complaints, I have it pulled up. I'll give it to you in a minute. This one is important because that's our one of two parts of what we're supposed to be doing. These are the dates that are tentative, suggested for having hearings that have accumulated for a while. I don't have any other answers from that, but we now have secured, we're looking at Thursdays and Fridays in the month of October to start out with. And so these are two in which there is space in the building for the resources that we need to have a meeting. Any comments on those as far as anybody not able to make those two?
Just a note, Ricardo, I will have to Zoom to those. So if you're talking about an in-person appeals hearing, I cannot attend.
Yeah, no, actually, I think that we're back to this same situation. When does COVID end? And when, even in this building, when I walk in, the sign says a mask, and it's great that that one person has mask. It's usually empty here, but if I were paranoid, I would not want to touch anything that I didn't clean. So I think we're still back to Zoom. As we clarify what the rules of the appeals hearing are, we'll need to do it by that date. As you saw, I asked you to take a look at what's available as far as the rules, so we can agree on them before we have the actual hearing with the complainant. And so we've almost culled everything that there is out there. And so for me, within this week, I have to gather up all the comments to make sure that we have a good procedure. That will include what do we do in these COVID times. And I believe it's just like today. I don't think that we're yet at the point where we should have a everybody in the same room kind of meeting. You can lock a Zoom meeting, so as far as privacy. Any other comments on that? Okay, if that is true, then I don't think we need a motion, but we forward these dates then to city to look for the hearing officer and to the complainant to make sure that they are available for those two dates. The first one that everybody agrees with will be the one, and we'll communicate that as soon as possible. We're 3 weeks away from the first date. So is that okay? It's a very lonely room here, and I only see two faces, so I'm trying to get a little bit of feedback.
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, that should work.
All right.
And I'll start my video so you're not quite so lonely, Ricardo.
Thank you. Thank you. Then I've got Tony on my left and Scott on my right, and I see Katrina now. Half of Katrina. Somehow there's
Hi, I don't know what's going on with my camera.
That's okay. I see you there. So, and thank you, Daryl, for turning yours on. So my machine is giving me trouble. I cannot access my CPRB folder, the city one. It has the Excel sheets. I saw it earlier today, and right now it's not giving me. So we can just give a status of how many are pending and how many appeals we are at. I did talk to the complainant since our last meeting, and just to agree on how to go about this, and so that's why we picked these dates together. But before we can have a hearing, we are pending procedure agreement and making sure that that's okay, which will be then the final go-ahead for us to meet. I sent you the hearing procedures up to now that we had. They're almost in full agreement, but I think that this is the time to comment on them if any of that is uncomfortable to you. And then I'll be producing the concise version, the summary version, so that it is okay with the complainant and okay with us. And I'll make the final determination just on calling what we have right now and what we've done before. So, anybody get to that? To the CPRB folder? For some reason, I have my...
What exactly were you looking for?
The folder of complaints and the folder of appeals. The spreadsheet there gives us the numbers. But I didn't download them. I made the mistake of looking at them, but not writing the numbers.
Well, right now, appeals looks like if these are numerical, let me check them. We have 46. Neither of those have initial or formal hearing dates appended to them, so that appears to be where we are. In terms of complaints for 2020, 01, it looks like we have 64. There are some ongoings here. Let me count them. 5, 6, 7, 12. Looks like 72 currently. So that's what I can tell from the complaint and appeals logs as they appear right now in the portal.
All right. So complaints are for our information. We don't act on them necessarily until they become appeals, but it's a preparation for us to get a lay of the land of what's going on. The appeals are what we will be handling on the appeals date that we just agreed to. The first order will be to sort them for those that are related, that we can do them together. And that's pending also agreement. So it's a big number, but I have high hopes that as we go through the work that we're doing, some of the appeals are taken care of by the changes that we've been implementing. So it should not scare us in that, you know, if one appeal was 3 hours, 46 would be 50 times 3, 150 hours, a little bit less, give or take, because they are going to be grouped, and we hope to do our best to bring them together in the best concise manner. But it is what we are here to do as much as the rest of what our agenda is. And so thank you very much for counting those up and knowing that we have a hearing date, dates proposed that we can do those. Status of complaints and appeals.
Oh, can I interrupt you?
Please.
I can't let go what I heard in your comment there. In my mind, it is certainly not only appeals that are primary concerns of this board. Now, certainly, when we have an appeals process that is being stressed, and we're trying to run through a lot of these, I know it feels like that, but when it comes to the annual reports that we issue, general overarching trends in the type of complaint that's made, you know, let's say 2020 becomes a real bad year for complaints about officers using inappropriate language. Then those are really, in my mind, very core concerns for the group. The appeals are going to be that which kind of breaks out of the surface where someone is unsatisfied. And so they have the right to, and they do appeal. The complaints really give you a lot more detail and subtext and valuable information as to how the community as a whole looks at policing. So I just got to throw that in as a little bit of input. One of my favorite things about annual reports, when we were successfully completing them, was actually, complaint 1 through complaint 15, a randomized number of the uniformed officer upon which the complaint was enacted, and then other demographic information that we can choose to add to or subtract to, but could include location, could include race, could include a specific column that was the supposed infraction or the complaint basis, as it were. And reading through those has been, for me, one of the most important functions that I have as a member of the board. So,
Thank you. Any other comments on that?
I would back up what Scott's saying is, part of the ordinance is to look at trends and, overarching issues with complaints about the city police, and having that data and that information as up to date as possible is, allows us to see that. And also, since, some of the pending appeals is regarding the complaint process, knowing what or when those are coming in and getting an idea of what is holding them up or not holding them up, and maybe just even seeing how they're progressing is something that we should be able to see as well.
So I agree. I didn't mean to diminish that part. It is another thing that we should do with the complaints is start pointing where there is lack of documentation, because we have had that, and it's better to pick it up and make sure that steps have been followed to make sure that the resident has been addressed properly and that we have a copy of those letters. It seems so basic, but for a while there, the letters weren't put in the folder, and we had to try to make sure that they were. I guess we have not produced a good annual report, and this 2019 one is an opportunity to push to have the accurate information, because even if 20 were not exceptional, you got to have trends of more than 1 year. And so we are 3/4 through, and the information ought to give us. I've been looking and I've been asking for questions. What else do we want to know from the police? And as you'll see a little bit later, I want to have a more open workstation so that we can produce both the trending data, but any other questions we might have of police records that are being kept and others that may not be kept that maybe ought to be kept. But you start out with the questions, not just with what they've kept there, because sometimes that information can tell us, answer a partially question. So if it's okay with you, one of the things that I'd like to make sure of, and Scotty, you've been traditionally in that role, but Katrina and Daryl and Tony, as you see the older reports, they may be satisfactory or they may not be satisfactory to you. And we should ask the questions and say this ought to be in the report. So that's one of the reasons why we're circulating the 2019 one. So you may want to take a look at it a little bit more. as far as I know, at this meeting is where we would approve it and send it to council. But because there's a written record, we can comment on it and enhance it and improve it until it's ready to be sent to council, when we agree that there's enough info there to make it worth it. Okay? All right. Thank you for the comment on that, Scott. If it's okay, then we have 5A pending. Before we get on to the other one, our last discussion, as you see in the minutes, we went through hypotheticals. I felt I was enriched by it, and I kept digging a little bit more about, well, one of the essential questions is what the ordinance says, and if it's adequate for our times for us to evaluate, and that includes then video. And we discussed then, if I recall correctly, what a third person, the person A is the police, person B is the resident. They are involved directly, but a third person is also, whether present there physically or present in video, is part of the repercussions. And so we discussed that right now, the form may or may not include exactly what the ordinance says, but we should define philosophically, or at least to our best understanding, what is it that we want, and make sure that it is defined such. So we're coming back to that. I'm summarizing very quickly. What I like to do before we end is to have an agreement of what it is that we want, and that may or may not implicate council. It probably will, but given the discussion last time, we were at a point in which we were tossing those. Lastly, in my research, I found a very interesting article. Actually, it's a PhD dissertation that if you want to see it, it's I don't know, like 300 pages on the use of video on with police and the effect of video is having. It was interesting, not necessarily conclusive for us, but I think it's the kind of stuff that I get lost in, because as we did with tasers, you can finesse a lot of wording. In the end, you want to have a result that of both accountability and fairness. So anyway, I'm open to any further thoughts on first person account. Tony, I think you had a little bit on that.
After our last conversation, I dug out my Black's Law Dictionary to see if I could get an answer, and the closest definition in there was for firsthand knowledge, which is not firsthand account, and it refers to, it says C, personal knowledge, and it defines personal knowledge as knowledge gained through firsthand observation or experience, as distinguished from a belief based on what someone else has said. And then it refers the reader to the federal rules of evidence, which requires a witness to have personal knowledge about what they're testifying about. I think obviously the ordinance was written before the prevalence of video being used in all police officer interactions, or most. But that doesn't mean that we can't read it to include what someone has seen on a video. And I think this is just another definition. I mean, we could pick Webster's or the other dictionaries as well to help our understanding. But I also like what Nikhil had said about it being a public interest contingent, or that being an issue. And in giving someone standing to report. And, I think we can read in someone's complaint about what they saw on a video. And if the city council thinks otherwise, then, they can act on it. But there's nothing in the ordinance that I don't think prevents us from taking up a complaint based on a video, in that someone puts forward. And it's interesting that this definition refers to rules of evidence. And in reviewing the policy and procedures manual, it says that we aren't applying those rules. So if we're not applying those rules and we're just going to take things and give them weight as we see fit, I don't see how we can limit someone filing a complaint based solely on what they saw in a video if we're going to allow, anything and everything to be put forth in an appeals hearing, and not cull it down based on other rules that, the courts apply. But, an expansive view of firsthand account, I don't think it's prevented in our ordinance. And while, we could submit that to the council for some clarification, I don't know if we necessarily need them to clarify it, unless they want to restrict that. I don't think the ordinance as written prevents us from taking that up or considering a complaint filed based on someone's view of a video.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please, Carol.
Yes. I have to say that I agree totally with what Tony has said. When we're considering a complaint, it seems to me pretty clear to me that we should have more information rather than less. And I don't think we should be constrained by any evidentiary rules that a court would apply. We're not a court. We do consider complaints and appeals, but we need more information rather than less. And I think that the definition of complaint should be amended to include a video that was taken.
So if I'm hearing you, there's two issues, right? Do we use video in our considerations? I think that's a given, right? It's more evidence, more information. The question, I think you clarified it there at the end, is can a video be the generation of the complaint? That is, if somebody sees something on a video that a person present took, does that give you then the standing to generate a complaint? So when do you become a first person versus a third person, and does video bridge that to become then a person that was there?
I think it does. I think it does.
Okay, great. That's a good clarification that we're going towards. Where are you, Katrina or Scott? Because we talked about some of these implications last time, and the third person flooding the system, with complaints, I understand that, but I don't think that should be what pushes back and says no. So go ahead. Katrina, Scott, anything more?
I don't have anything to add. I'm just kind of listening.
Processing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
But I'm pretty, if I have something to say, I'll speak up.
I like that. Love that. So we're at a point if we would be in agreement that video, that somebody that was not physically present but saw the item, the situation on a video, and they want to put in a complaint, that they are able to put in a complaint. Right?
That's correct, yes.
I think so, yes.
Good. The, not objection, but the consideration I had put forward as just a hypothetical, if the person that was there, and let's, again, just for discussion's sake, that was abused by the officer, does not want to put in a complaint, how would you guys handle it? The person that sees the video wants to put in a complaint. The person that suffered the wrong, the injury, says no.
Well, I mean, have to be. They're not going to be brought forward in front of the board if they're not complaining. But that doesn't preclude us from reviewing it. I mean, that would it's someone else is complaining. You know, we don't want to re-victimize somebody.
Mhm.
But you know, we don't necessarily need to hear from them. It's more of a concern of, you know, was this the proper procedure done? We need to hear from the police department more than from the actual person who is allegedly being harmed.
And they could decline to be witnesses.
Right, and they can decline to be a witness.
Okay.
Just like the officer involved doesn't come before our board and discuss what happened. We have a representative, so it's. Okay. I don't see much difference, I guess.
All right.
But you know, Mr. Chairman, the person who was, for our purposes, abused may be too traumatized or intimidated, and that would be the reason they didn't want to file a complaint. But it may be clear from the video that something bad happened and should be brought to our attention.
Good. I think we're agreeing that if a wrong happens, that should be our purview, and it ought to come to us in whichever way it happens. Again, last discussion, there was also, does the person that filed the report from a video, they can be wronged in the sense that they see what's wrong and they're calling it out? Are they the one to put in the complaint, or is there, as Mikhail suggested, an opportunity for us to put in the complaint and just call the chief of police and says something happened here, please investigate it? You know what I mean? Because
I would ask that we defer that point. I think you're getting into a more significant change in how the board was designed and supported and the intent of the ordinance. I think we should take this as the small chunk of the firsthand account rendering language being expanded. And I would be in favor of actually making that a recommendation to council, because eventually I think the ordinance will have to be clarified in addition to the complaint form that we have. That's kind of minor.
okay.
I agree with Scott that we're kind of getting beyond the ordinance at that point, and I don't know if I foresee a situation where there's video evidence and there isn't someone complaining about it, where we would have to step in. I think that seems unlikely, but
yeah,
I guess. Oh, sorry, but if you don't plan for the unlikely, then when it happens, it's going to take you longer to, I guess, come to a solution. And I understand that we're going beyond that, but it's just something to probably think about. You know, like when people plan for the A and the B and they never, and then when C happens, they panic. And if you're already in panic mode, you're not going to properly think everything through because it's unexpected. Like COVID, a lot of things happened, things weren't in place, a lot of people panicked. Some panic was warranted, some panic was not. So it's just something to, sprinkle out there.
Mm-hmm. So I agree with you, Katrina, on let's best be ready. And not that I want to change the ordinance on this particular thing yet, Scott. And I say yet because it might be something to consider later. I want to very much go to the point of there is an ordinance that gives us both our charge and our limitations. But if we are police review board, and we'll discuss this a little bit in the categories of the petition, people seem to want a stronger police review board. And while council is the last word on it, you know, in negotiating with the public, we are in a position where, given the experiences that we're having, that we ought to at least have a recommendation, a thinking of. And that's why, as I forwarded to you guys last week, the petition includes many thoughts. And as we categorize it, some of them we may want to own up to as is, as tweaks almost. And then others that are beyond us, but that we ought to say to council, these are not ours, these are yours. At minimum, those two categories. There are others in between that we can come to. But so anyway, on this particular issue, I am asking that we now turn into concise language of this thought that we're putting forward of first-hand accounts. So I want to go to the actual wording of the ordinance. I think, Tony, you had said that we right now could just say that we want to and have our form and our procedures update to say that we are. But I think, as Katrina says, we should be ready for council coming back. And
Sure. I just meant, you know, the policy and procedures already redefines what first-hand account is, and it uses different language in there. So there's, you know, if we're able to make reasonable interpretations of the ordinance through that policy and procedures, then I think we're all in agreement that that's reasonable. So we can include it in our policy and procedures, and then we can send it up to City Council as a recommendation for clarification. And then if they want to curtail it or, you know, limit the review of a video and say that does not include, a first-hand account doesn't include a video, someone viewing a video that wasn't actually present, you know, so be it. But at this point, it doesn't seem like we're restricted in that way. You know, that's my reading of it as to how we can proceed. We can interpret it by the board can interpret it. We can send up clarification because I think it's just not worded very well, or it just wasn't contemplated at the time when it was written. And it seems like a proper thing to ask for clarification on. So we can do both.
Yeah, now here's what the ordinance says, and this is section 19-28, part D. Complaint shall be based upon a first-hand account, either by the person involved in the incident or a witness to the incident, except that a minor shall be represented by a parent or guardian in all matters complaining to the complaint. Interestingly, that says shall, not a minor may be represented by a parent or guardian. So that's what the ordinance says, which in my mind, it's been a while since I looked at policies and procedures. It is fairly straightforward and limiting. And so, you know, I guess I'd like to offer a motion that the CPRB forward to the City Council a request for consideration to the CPRB ordinance section 19-28 point D that it should read first-hand account or video record of incident. That's a motion.
I will second that motion.
Discussion. I'm trying to put in first-hand account by a person physically present at the incident or video. Insert the words or video. So I would say complaints shall be based upon either a first-hand account or video by a person physically present at the incident or written.
Yeah, I think that's a good start. Yes,
Okay.
That's my intent.
Okay.
I would maybe clarify that it's or viewed via video, while not, and not physically present.
Mhm. So I am,
So there should be three ways that you get standing: personal viewing, actually present. Second would be video viewing, not physically present, and then third would be the clarification regarding a minor.
okay. I'm trying to grab the text directly from the ordinance so I don't make a mistake on the part that we are completely. It's 1928D. Thank you for your patience, but I view as we put forward work that we do it here because the rules tell us that we can't get together otherwise. So in a regular full discussion, there's gaps here. I've got to find the policy manual section on this.
I wouldn't bother with that, Ricardo, right now. Well, actually, I consider that to be a non-friendly amendment to my motion, which I do consider Anthony's to be friendly amendments. I'm specifically only interested in drilling down to the ordinance and to suggest changes there. Policies and procedures, we are so far behind on editing that document that I don't think it should be germane.
Okay, so we will eventually change the other, but in this case, we do. So thinking through, we recommend to council, they'll put it on their agenda. It's going to be a little while before they come back. We need to decide, while it's generally understood that when we change a rule that doesn't apply backwards, it applies forwards. Implementation of this idea and practice is when? From here forward?
I would just ask that we call the question and get a vote. If the motion fails, then it's moot, and we will have wasted all the time we're about to spend.
So call the question. Any objections? Any other discussion before we vote on making this change? Or making this recommendation to council? Because that's where the motion is.
That's what the motion is.
I guess I just thinking this through, if we ask council, they could theoretically tell us that we don't want, they could say, no, that's not what this means. And if we just change the policy and procedures to include it as our interpretation and then wait for council to act, then we are able to review these things that we are in agreement as being something that the board should be taking up.
Yeah, I think the most straightforward way is to present it as a formal motion from CPRB to the council and make them digest it. They're going to hear a lot from James Simons about attestation of videos and all of that we heard the last time we met. I'll remind everybody that this ordinance originally passed on a 4-3 vote. So I really think it's incumbent on us to at least get the process started. How you may want to deal with and argue about changes to the policy and procedures manual, can come immediately after the vote on this, if that's what we want to do. But I think our duty to the council is to voice, craft a clear motion recommendation that the ordinance itself be changed, which is only the purview of the city council. So,
okay. So to clarify then, we forward it and we send it to council as a proposed change. Do we have an agreement as to what to do, or shall we vote on this first and then we say how we're going to implement this in the meantime? Because we're just agreeing to send it to council, not to actually implement, as the motion is set right now.
right, I'm asking that the chair call the question and we vote it up or down, and it either gets relayed to the council or not, and then we can continue with new business if someone chooses to.
Okay. So the motion is to change the wording of the ordinance to say the following. I'm clarifying, Scott. Complaint shall be based upon a first-hand account, either by the person involved in the incident or a witness to the incident, or video of such, except that a minor shall be present, represented by a parent, etc.
That doesn't cover, I believe, since we were at 1928D. Anthony, was your intent upon bringing in your third point to change that shall to may in the ordinance?
Let me.
Right now it says shall.
Right, right. And I had noted that as I was reading through my original motion.
Yeah.
I would, no, it should say shall, but it's shall be based on a first-hand account. And then it should say video recording. So that would be a third option.
So, or video recording of such, or just video recording?
Or video recording of the account, I guess, if we're going to keep with the language of ordinance, I think.
So I'm putting in brackets the wording after incident or video recording of the account, comma, except that a minor shall be represented by.
Yeah, I think the council will be able to clearly view our intent, and this motion is simply a note of that to council. They will have their own language required, probably, as they start crafting around on an ordinance change. And we've got several of these that we may be going through. And so what I'm really trying to do is to start a precedent by which we look at language that is either unclear or in conflict with something, either our intent or maybe the policies and procedures, and start biting off little chunks to make our intent known to the council in terms of.
I like the thinking, Scott, because starting the process means that it's still going to take a while, and the discussion of implications of this, we have started since last meeting as to what implications it may have, but what we want is that they consider it as a video recording, because there are times at which the video is the witness. And while we can talk all day about it, ultimately they have to decide it, given that we've already declared our intention that video recording does count. Okay? All right, so you've called the motion several times. I just want to clarify that what the motion was. And Daryl, I think you seconded it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So are we ready to vote? Okay, on the motion to send this language to council, let's have a roll call. Tamara, you're on.
Tony Allegretti,
Yes.
Ricardo Diaz,
Yes.
Scott Dossett,
Yes.
Katrina Kindle,
You're muted. Okay, that's a yes. Okay.
Daryl Price,
Yes.
Here's my yes. Sorry, my computer's acting up.
Mine just told me that my connection is unstable. And I'm here with 15 feet from the router, but it happens.
Yeah, just a quick comment. Thank you, Anthony, for piling on and helping out there.
Sure.
Very much. There are various proposals in the community as to how to have changed this, but we have certainly dealt with, well, we will be dealing with some of this in the complaints and the appeals that are in process. So it's one way of addressing that. And the other, we have also heard it from people that come before the board at public comment. So out there in the community, let's get comments on it. But right now we have a passed proposal. So now let's do something that we haven't done before, but I think that we need to clarify, and that is this. Our relationship to council, we've been talking about it as if it's normal, and yet we have not had a regular presence at council. Scott did it this week. Great, we should. You represented us, but we haven't yet. Like, how do we propose this to council? We send it as a letter. We go and ask for 5 minutes to present this language. How shall we go about it? And I'm leaving it open because what we have done before may not necessarily apply, because I could not find procedures necessarily that spelled it out. We are right now the CPRB, and I believe that we ought to just spell it out for ourselves. Any suggestions then? How does this get delivered and explained to council as to what our intention is? 1, 2, 3.
Well, a quick note, Ricardo, you're aware that I've made a point to note that the CPRB, unlike several boards and commissions, has no council representative.
Yeah.
And have advocated for such to the mayor. And I think this is, this is one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
Because we lack any kind of a formal sort of relay mechanism. Now, obviously, we're working with Carol Minton and other staff, and we're trusting on the good faith of that relationship to make everything work well for everybody.
Yeah.
And I've never, let's see, is that true? Let's see here, have I ever been on a board that had a council rep? No, I haven't, in spite of serving on boards for a couple of decades here for the city. So I don't really know what that feels like.
Well, and I don't know how other boards function. I mean, it would be natural for the chair to do that representation, but I would want it voiced here because we have not spelled it out. I don't know how other boards function. I have not been on other of this city's boards, and so I don't know if any of those boards have either liaison or not. So Carol, enlighten.
Well, I was going to suggest there's a couple ways to approach this, but if you wanted to, we're putting the agenda together for the council meeting on Monday, the 28th right now. If you want to, we can put an item in where a representative of CPRB could come and express, just orally present. And what you could request then is that the council directs staff, if they're of a mind to take the action that you want, to direct staff to prepare an ordinance change implementing your suggestion. Then that would go on the 5th, the following Monday, to the committee of the whole, and they could take action there and then take final action at the following council meeting. And that way you don't have to do all the wordsmithing. You would just be sort of handing that off to the council to then give direction to staff to do what we ordinarily would do with ordinance changes.
Okay. I like the fact that there is a physical, well, virtual, but presence at the council so that it's expressed. I also like the fact that in the end, they'll do whatever they want with it as long as they get our intention. And that there may be on the 5th or another time that they call us to say, how did you get here, whatever else. Any comments on that?
I guess I would have just naturally assumed, Ricardo, that the chair of the group or their designee be the one to present to council. So yeah. It sounded as if you had a question about that. Well,
I do have a question about that. One, to make sure that it's okay with you guys that the chair would do it. And thank you for adding the designee part, because I'm actually leaving this Saturday and not coming back until the following Saturday. And I'm camping. And so we are planning not to be connected to anything. So except electricity once in a while, but not Wi-Fi. So I would want to designate somebody for this Monday to present it as we have spoken today. And then on the 5th, I could confer with that person and then come back, be available at that council meeting. As you know, council meetings have been quite long. And so wherever we could get put in the agenda, there's enough overlapping issues that we might get shuffled. But anyway, if that is the procedure that we see as what would happen, then I need a volunteer to be there on Monday to present this intention to the council.
God, it was your motion.
No, we work together. We cover each other. There will be times at which I cannot be here and one of you has to do the meeting. And there are times at which one of you, like in this case, I asked Tony to do some research for us because I know it's coming.
Last Monday was 4 hours, guys. I gave somebody else to do this.
You gave it the office. Yes, Carol.
Well, I don't know if you'll find this satisfactory, but I'll offer it anyway. I will be there. If you want to write something and you would like me to read it on your behalf, so that, I will be there for the entire meeting. I'm happy to read something on your behalf so that none of you has to participate in the endurance event, and go from there. And I know that you would prefer to have a member of the CPRB, but I'm just offering since I'll be there anyway.
I thank you, Carol. And I would normally jump at the chance of the help. But I think at least for the portion in which it's presented, the CPRB cannot take. If we can't do it at this meeting, then I would suggest that we push it to the 5th. There will be lots of back and forths in the coming 2 months. And the personable part, I think, is the part that I don't want to misstep, because staff has been taking, a great portion of the load, and it's time for us to do it. So if we don't have a volunteer, then I volunteer for the 5th if it works out. But I think that it has to be one of us. So
what time is the meeting next Monday?
Well, there's going to be a special meeting of the town board that's, I believe, going to start at 6:15.
Mm-hmm.
That should end about 7 o'clock. We will have a closed session at the beginning of the meeting, even before we take public input. And that will be of indeterminate length. It will be, I expect, a long meeting. So I wouldn't anticipate getting an opportunity prior to 9 o'clock, and it could be closer to 11 o'clock.
But the only thing you have to be pending for is when our turn comes to be called on to put this wording. You don't have to be there for the rest of the meeting. It's funny, it's relevant. I often will watch at least portions of them, if not the whole thing, because whatever council is talking about right now, it is policing, it is matters that will weigh on us, and we should be aware of what they say. But,
I can do it as long as, if something is written, Ricardo, I don't have a problem, and I'm good with it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katrina.
No problem.
We'll have the specific language of the change. They may ask you questions. Tony, you were talking about the three, and I think we have them, but
About the what? I'm sorry.
About the 3 ways, personal viewing, present. Would you mind putting that in a paragraph for Katrina?
Yeah, I can draft a proposed change.
Excellent.
I didn't know how you wanted me to. I mean, we can't circulate it. I guess I would just send it back to you, and then it would.
You can send things to everybody as long as we don't respond to everybody. And I think if you were to send it to and blind CC everybody's name as you send it to Katrina, we know what you sent to Katrina, and that should be fine. I'm putting in we don't have it. Well, you can pick up, but I will make sure to right now send you what we voted in so that you can finesse it a little bit.
And I'll be changing. Tamara sent me something. I need to get another email so that I only get CPRB stuff. So I'm gonna do that tonight before I go to bed. I'm just gonna add a letter to probably my middle initial to do a new email.
Okay, that'll be good.
I'll wait to send it out until that page is updated then.
Okay.
Tony, I just sent you what we talked about in the parentheses, not that you couldn't reconstruct it, but that way you know what we talked about.
Well, and we should be mainly, hopefully Tamara followed the back and forth, to and fro, Katrina, and so you should be able to get at least a draft motion from her that you can kind of help with, add Tony and Ricardo's dialogue to that.
Yeah, she takes very good notes, as we saw from the last one. So, yeah. But anyway, so because I'm leaving in 2 days, then Tony, if you'll take it one more step, Katrina presents it on Monday. There shouldn't be too much in that it's a new topic for them, and they'll say thank you, and then they decide or not for the Monday after. Okay. Any other comments on this particular item?
Where would I find the access to get to that meeting for Monday?
Carol, can you?
I can send it. I'll send you a link.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On the City Council's website, Katrina, there's always an agenda posted. And just like our agendas, there's a blue hot link that will get you right into the meeting. That's generally how it works.
Actually, Carol and you and Tamara have been supporting on this, but I just find it, for my own sanity, when we have a meeting, if you'll send out an invite, Tamara, you send us the reminder of it, but if in that letter, I can ask that you just send an invitation so that it shows up on people's calendars.
So you want an Outlook invitation for the board?
Invitation, sure, we can do that.
Thank you very much. I don't know how many of these meetings I have looked at it that morning as I'm reviewing things, and I should review them on Monday before anything happens, but it is not unusual for me to be on Tuesday realizing that I've got to meet you guys on Wednesday. So that was before. Now pressure gets me on the ball a lot better, but okay. All right, guys, I know that the time is important. I wanted very much to start chipping at the big things that we have before us. And that to me then has included, back to the agenda. My feelings on, so I'm closing up unfinished business and going for new business, 6. The petition that people put together, that that we circulated for ourselves to consider today. This is the intro. It's very hard to get people out in the community together to talk on a single issue. I do it for other reasons, and darn it, it's once we get together, people go all over the place, and it's very hard to get somebody to get designated to write up what we just talked about and to then circulate it and make sure that we are all in agreement that that's what we said and that's what we want. To me, the petition has assumptions that I may not agree with, but the fact that they got together and they put it all like this as a formal document forwarded to council and to us makes it significant, because I appreciate that there was so much work went behind it. Yes, it's possible that one person orchestrated the whole thing. I have been there too, but by the time 5 or 10 people sign on to it or more, they're putting their name to it, and so they're agreeing that what was written is a reflection of their thoughts. Second, yes, it's true that a petition like this does not reflect all in the community. That's a momentous task. That's what elections are for. And there are other people that have thoughts about what they consider reform in the long run to be. Today, I'd like to initiate a process in which we take what is formally put forward to us and then go on a campaign of public input, public outreach, to get more feedback so that we are, if not assured, at least have done a valiant effort of picking up what people in, East Urbana, South Urbana, wherever we live, and the circles that we move in, to get feedback from them so that we can be informed enough to say we did our best to pick up information on proposals. Some of it is ours. Yes, we accepted for this position to do so, but I think we want to be reflecting the community. As such, this putting the petition in front of us to just read it together and start forming comments as to what categories of tasks are generated by this proposal gives us, I think, an opportunity for other people in the community to comment on them. Yes, I agree. Don't know, I don't agree. The mechanism of how do we collect those comments, to me right now, is a bit fuzzy. The constraint of meetings and the act means that I can't see you guys except here as a group. So we can't have a free flow amongst us, but it does not prevent any one or any two of us to be out there in the community and generate a meeting or cover, churches or wherever else that we might have a forum for feedback. What I don't know yet, and I'm putting this out so that I learn, what about if we had a Google Doc? And it's public enough that people can make comments to something like this. The categorizing, I thought it was a task that we could do, but to start with. But once we get to the nitty-gritty of what does each one of these, the ones that are ours, that we can act on, what does it take and how do we word it? And how do we prepare ourselves so that when we come to this meeting, we have enough detail that we can act on? Just this little change, little big change on a form or a petition to council is taking months. And I just see that as completely not of what I like to move with. So that's why I am searching and I'm asking around to see, is there a collaboration meeting? Is there a collaboration document generated so we can be over time collecting? I don't have that answer yet, but I want you guys to, I like to put things on the table, and if it hits the fan, I'd rather clean up like that than have all these ifs. Just put them on the table and we figure it out. So anyway, comments on that before we would get to the task.
Study session,
Study session.
special
I've heard that.
study session. Principals can then zoom in, elucidate their comments. I've been in a couple of these before, and it's good to have someone who can facilitate well to make sure that we make some progress. But it feels too random for me to walk down the block and pick out a person that I know that's interested in social justice work in the community and say, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
If a study session was declared and a special meeting was held, then that would give members of the community time to refine their comments. Certainly going into that, I think sort of the categorizing, as you stated it here in the agenda, is a good thing to do. Thankfully, we've already got a couple that we've already done that, to add to the sorting. So anyway, that's my perspective.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
After, I mean, it's a pretty dense 6 pages.
It is.
I think some of the organization, it needs to be organized a little better, just so for easy understanding. But is there some sort of public comment we can submit or call to or use through the city? Like I'm thinking of like when the FCC opens things up for public comment. Is that something that we want to do? Just because it's all online, and it's not just walking up to somebody on the street and asking them these questions. It might actually better facilitate someone's actual, real opinions if they're typing it out, as opposed to doing it face to face.
That's where I'm leaning towards, the ability of a Google Doc, or at least a repository of comments. Carol, you have some thoughts there.
At a previous session, I had offered the assistance of the team that's working on the comprehensive plan, because they're developing some tools to get public feedback over a longer period of time than just in a given session. So I'd be happy to invite them to the next meeting, or if we end up having a special meeting in between, to talk about what the tools that they have discovered and see if that would be useful to you.
I'm actually, I like that, in that then we're part of the integrated process of how this and the HH recommendations are coming through to council. I'm also interested if the people that signed this, if they could choose a representative to explain it, because I agree with you, Tony, there's a lot here. And so my first idea was to have them present this today so that we would have a sense of it before we dug into it. And then I realized that by circulating it in a serious way for us all to pay attention to it, we would light up with some of these comments. To summarize then, what would be a next step? We have some time left on our allotted for today. Not that we want to fill it necessarily, if we can come to what our next step is. Sure.
Could I just make a suggestion? There's different categories of proposal that are in the petition. And some of them, they readily acknowledge, like, that would require changes to the collective bargaining agreement or whatever. So to me, you have to decide what piece you want to break off. I don't think you can take the whole petition and try to, eat the elephant at once, as to use that metaphor. So it might be useful to decide which piece you want to break off that is a manageable size and move that forward and then, move to the next piece. But we're still accomplishing a substantial amount of,
Yeah, I agree with you. There are, section 5 of this document are recommendations to council, but about us, about our board. What I don't want to happen is that those recommendations just go up without us having commented on whether we think that that's that we would want to be in that role or not. We are missing 2 people on here as far as work. The amount of hours that we want to spend on this one should yield some results that will satisfy us. We were involved in something constructive. But I don't want to scare off these possible applicants in the next little while with overwhelming them with too much besides our regular meetings, study session, research, that kind of stuff. We are all volunteers. I'm very conscious of that. And therefore we each have to say, kind of like even in the procedures are, we don't follow certain guidelines, we can be outed from our position. No, that's not the way to bring somebody on, The way it is to make the work significant and palatable as we invite new people. So as I think of this section 5, therefore, I'm thinking that maybe what we can do is do a reading and say, and just, I don't know, send in and say out of 1 through 5, A, B, C, D, these I think CPRB can say, or these I don't agree with or comment on it. If you send them to me, then I can do with help to then integrate all those comments and then give them back to you so that then we can whittle the list down as to what we agree we can do. And then leave the others. But I think I would like a sense of what you guys would like to do. And given this comprehensive list, say, you know what, for time or for ordinance or for whatever, I don't want to get into that. I will respect that. Because if we can come to a Democrat, into a majority vote to say that's too much, then I'm sorry, council, that's yours. But some of these are structural and they will take a long time, but in the intensity of it, some very good things can happen. Anyway, I've talked enough. My proposal is that we would each send in comments to make the task manageable. First, just to read it and say, this one is I see as being CPRB for what I signed up for.
Okay, I'd agree with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Anybody else? You can reject me and I will be hurt, but I won't cry.
I've read through it. I haven't had a chance to really comment on it, but I like that start. And then that will, I think, help in reducing what we think we can accomplish with the petition.
Thank you. I would see that we're more ready for the suggestion of this comprehensive committee or bigger committee. We will be ready to say, you know what, we'd like to participate, but only in these 5 things that we have chosen together. Grandpa? I just became, well, sorry. I am grandpa of 1 kid. I was gonna speak out of turn, sorry.
Are you addressing me, Ricardo?
Yes, sir. You've been having grandchildren for a little while.
For a long time. Sure, I'll mark it up. I could see running through that, tracking edits and just annotating by color things that were definitely outside our purview. this issue about subpoena power, independence, no city staff involved.
So how about we just say the ones that you would see CPRB, and anything you don't see a CPRB presently, then you don't have to go through the.
Well, no, that's not the way I want to approach it, because I think those are legitimate areas of interest from people.
Okay.
And in fact, if the citizens of Urbana decide that they want to put pressure on the administration to somehow create a truly independent review board in Urbana, then, I might be interested in supporting that.
Okay.
Whether I would be interested in serving on that is a different question. Okay. But I don't think, and that's why the idea of a public meeting came to me, is because I think we need to be, we need to, I'm not suggesting in Carol's parlance that we try to swallow the whole elephant, but I think we should make chunks out of it that we can decide how we want to work on.
Excellent. Okay.
So my intent would be to go through the 6 pages, make a category of things that we've already done or acted on to our capability. A lot of the document is basically criticism that is apt and due vis-a-vis reporting requirements that this board has failed to make. I'm not really interested in any debate about that. So those are going to go into a category. Yeah. Yes, we haven't had the staff support that we have currently been promised and is coming, and we're going to do better.
Okay.
But I think some of those really big questions about the independence, the subpoena stuff, and all that, I think that's really what people are interested in getting.
So how about this? We each then, as we review, we send in those categories or those thoughts, and I'll try to merge them. I think what I'll do, I don't know if everybody handles like word merge, what's it called? The review feature in Word. Does everybody handle Word, Microsoft Word?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Katrina and Daryl? Yes. Okay, Katrina, I don't see you, but your name may
yes.
Okay. So I'll have this converted to a Word document that we can each review independently. You'll send it to me, and I'll merge the reviews, and then we can work off that. Okay?
Great.
Okay, thank you. That will be the next regular meeting, which is a month from now, and we had a thought about the date. The date would be the 21st, is it?
It's October 28th.
October 28th, thank you. And that would be the bulk of our meeting here. Because it's going to take us a little while, but by then we will see how we fit with the others. I'd like to invite this group or where we might fit on that. And by then, we should have our review integrated enough that we, at that meeting, maybe come to a consensus of this is what we all said and these are the points that we might want to pick up. I don't see yet, I guess if we have questions, we can ask people to come to public comment and address them. But what we don't have is like a public, there's the website where all kinds of documents are there, but we don't have a collection method or people to email us. I guess that's what I would ask then at that point is email us as a group and grab the mails like many people do, is just grab the mails. Okay, just talking to myself. I'm figuring that out. Thank you very much. I don't think we need a vote on that kind of decision. We're concurring and it fits, I think, what we're doing. If there's no disagreement, I'd just like to go to the next part of the agenda, which is the announcements.
Just a quick note, Ricardo, in case someone remembers. I am pretty much full-time early vote judging and won't be available till 6:30
On the 28th?
Yes.
Okay,
Same, that'd be the same for me, Mr. Chairman.
excellent. So 6:30, not before 6:30, the meeting on the 28th.
Yes.
Okay, actually, related to regular meetings, we also have an issue that our scheduled regular meeting in November is Thanksgiving week and also post-Christmas week. So I hereby ask Carol to look at those dates, find the resources to propose dates for our regular meeting not to be on those key weeks. Because we're not likely to have a quorum because Daryl's gonna go also on a cruise to the Bahamas or something, right?
Not quite. I wish.
Yeah, I will circulate those tomorrow. I apologize. I didn't circulate those already, but we have some proposed dates and times.
Okay, thank you very much. And that then gets us as to projecting the next month, both on hearing and on regular meetings and topics of those. Thank you very much. Actually, no, we shouldn't send you on a cruise anytime for a while, Daryl.
No.
Horseback riding in Montana. No?
I have to write something, yeah.
All right. Okay. We're out to this section of announcements. And before I forget, somebody remind me, when we come back to public participation, we need to get the Quaker letter in. We all got it, but we should read it. Others should hear. So, announcements, an exciting one. Carol, who do we have?
Thank you.
Number 3.
I would like to introduce to you all Lamond Peppers, who's just appearing on our screen now. He has been selected as the Community Engagement Coordinator, and he has graciously agreed to come on board. His first day is next Monday, but we invited him to come tonight so that you could meet him and maybe ask a few questions. He has a long history of working in education and mental health services, and he was Preston James' partner in crime, not literary crime, but in helping stand up the Self-Made Kings youth group. So I'd like to introduce Lamond to you, and if he has any things he would like to say by way of background, he's more than welcome to do that right now, if you give him a minute, or just say hi.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Hey, Mr. Peppers.
Oh, someone said Mr. Peppers. You say that, I look for my dad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to, I thank you, Carol, for inviting me here this evening. Just really in short, I am born and raised Champaign all my life. I've lived in both Champaign and Urbana. I'm a product of Unit 4 schools. My mother taught in Unit 4 schools. My father was a minister, drove MTD buses. So I've been here my whole life, and I'm just excited to join a city that I believe is ready and on the cusp to lead some necessary changes as we move further into the 21st century. So I'm very excited for the opportunity to work with you all, certainly to work with and learn from Carol. It's been an overwhelming culmination. I think I applied in June. So it's been a road, but I am very appreciative, and certainly it's a pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you.
Excellent. I think I knew your face, so it must have been at when we used to have community meetings, the whole county with Tracy. I'm not sure, but I've seen your face. Maybe it was with a group of kids then.
I may have poked in there, here or there.
May. That's very good. Can you both clarify then, what do we email you, Carol, on a task and you handle that to Lamond? Or at what point do we just say, Lamond, we need help here? Where's the line of authority, and what's the section of the support that of his time? There you go. You're being pointed to.
Okay, so the HRO, or which is now being renamed from Human Rights Officer to Human Rights and Equity Officer, and the Community Engagement Coordinator are now going to be part of the executive rather than part of HR as they had been before. So for now, eventually, we will get a human rights and equity officer, and I could say a word about that. But then Lamond will report to that person. But as I had said to you, I will support you while you need help until we're fully staffed. And so I expect that Lamond and I will be working very closely together. So if you have any questions, issues, me or Lamond or both of us, and we will be talking on a daily basis. And so we won't let anything slip.
Okay, so for right now, send it and CC you both, or send it to both, and then you guys will decide who does what and
Yes.
at what. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
There you go.
I have a question. Carol, so you said that this was moving to the executive, so like directly under the mayor. What does that mean about the more mundane support such as we've been receiving and has been very much appreciated from Ms. Corbin? Does she move into the executive or stay in HRO?
Tamara has a different job. Tamara's been pitching in because she's a good team player, and those more mundane things will also be transitioning to Lamond.
Okay.
You didn't give her a raise, Scott. You tried.
If she wants to arm wrestle Lamond for some of this stuff, I mean, but I think she's got a full plate waiting for her in HR. So.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's more than just a small issue to me, because we're behind on reports, we're pressured for reports, we're pressured for continuity, and I just want to make sure that however the handoff gets made, that we're going to continue to make progress with those things. So.
If I could just respond to that. So Lamond's going to be with us a long time, and so you'll have the continuity. We've been, we had this turnover that was unexpected, and because this is what our team does, we pull together and people help out and do multiple jobs at the same time. That being said, even as we staff up, our ability, what kind of a full plate you have moving forward. Our ability to go backwards, and I know you're frustrated about the 2019 report and the lack of reporting for approximately 5-year gap. Our ability to go back and recreate all that data is very limited. We don't have that kind of bandwidth. So we can talk about whether or not there's a role for the board members should they want to help, try to help recreate some of that information. But we're going to have our hands full providing the continuity that you're looking for and the tracking that you're looking for going forward. And as I described this to you and Ricardo on an email exchange that we had, this is years of collective neglect, and it's indefensible. But it's not the failure of just one person. It's a collective failure, and that's how we're going to get through it. Is a collective effort to do better going forward. But when you reboot, you don't necessarily go debug the old system, right? So we can have more of a conversation about what data we could possibly bring forward from prior years. But our focus
Carol,
is.
You've been forthright, and I appreciate that. What we're offering is a collaboration to be able to document as much as possible. I think Scott and I have both been in the point where we'll take the raw stuff, we'll shape it, and then I support him, but and we ask questions. If you don't have it, then you don't have it. But if we have questions, we'll pose them to you, and you say, you know what, it's in that pile. There are times at which that pile is what we need anyway. the digested reports are always a question in that data is that way. Whoever's inputting and collecting it shapes it. So there may be at times at which it's easier just to transfer it to us. We may at some point say, you know what, and we don't want it either for the same reasons that you are at. But right now it's in our best interest to at least attempt at it. And I appreciate that you're saying that there's, you know, Lamont, probably this is one of his 5 jobs. I don't know, but that's what usually happens when you come into a place where there's been a gap. So we will do our best. We want to collaborate, and I think Scott has asked good questions, and we just need to figure out how do we beef up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Good. Do you want to thank you, and Lamont, you are now actually the first task is to take the petition and make it into a Word document, send it to me, if you don't mind. But no, this is one of the announcements, the happy one. The other ones are happy, but not as happy. So tell us about this position of the HR.
The Human Rights and Equity Officer.
Yeah. How much does it pay?
That's a good question. I don't have that in front of me, or do I have that in front of me?
Just saying.
I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
But we are using, this is a really important position, and we were blessed with a lot of interest in the position that Lamond applied for, and it took so long because we had to cull through a very competitive field, and he came out on top, but that took time. We are using a recruitment firm to recruit for the Human Rights and Equity Officer. And that's GovHR. We use them for a variety of things. And they are being released, I think today or tomorrow, to begin the recruitment process. So as the advertisements go forward, we'll make those available to you so you can circulate them. But they're going to help us find some really talented folks. And it'll take a while. I mean, it will take, let's see, June to September. That's what, 4 months? It'll take every bit of 4 months plus.
Okay, so job description is still in process, and so the ad won't come out, but we will be on the mailing list so we can circulate.
We'll make sure that you get it all. The position description is finalized. And I mean, if you want to see that before the ad goes out, I'd be happy to get you a copy of that.
For recruiting.
Okay.
Sounds great. So those are staff positions and they're paid. The CPRB volunteers do not get paid, and we have 2 positions open. I think you were going to put up put it up on the website. Is it up yet, Carol?
I know that we posted, or I believe that we posted with this agenda, the application.
Yep.
I think Tamara can confirm that because she would have done that. Is that what we did, Tamara?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. You posted the application with the agenda.
Yes, yes.
CPRB vacancies.
Yes, it's been posted on the website.
Okay. I did talk to the mayor about this one. As far as timing, she did reiterate that there's lots of positions on other boards, but that ours would go through. And last time, Mikhail and I interviewed, along with the chief of police and the mayor, the candidates. She said that she would like to keep doing that. I welcome your input, and I don't know anything that would bar any one of you to be present, but we're gaining colleagues. We don't want to scare them, but we also don't want to downplay the fact that this is work that we are extremely committed to. To put a parenthesis on it, last time, I guess the mayor makes the decision and then presents it to council, and council votes on it. And last time there was, I just had not expected, but there were questions as to whether that was enough of a procedure. We'll leave that up to them, but I think we can certainly be looking and inviting people to look at this application, fill it up. If you notice, in fact, the description of your job is there, but I think it does take some convincing. I'd like to take the opportunity also, because people do come to this meeting, consider yourself, if you're going to invest a bunch of time looking at what we're doing, why not apply and do it formally with us? You will learn not only some legalistic roadblocks, but I think you will also see that working together, we can create a much better institution of making the city police better. So that's the ad, but definitely well for me, meaning as to how do we do it all. Is there any more on those announcements? Any feedback, comment, additions? Lamond, are you going to stay? Okay, great. No more comments on announcements. Then we go back to the last part that we normally do, since Mikhail and Cetvirin, I think it's a good idea. Go back to participants and now go to, it says 10 people attending. There is one hand raised. And so 2, 3, and we want to hear their feedback. So I see Christopher Hansen first, Tracy Chong, and Emily Close in that order. There's normally a 5-minute limit, and so we'll keep to that. And thank you, Jason. Christopher.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Christopher Hansen again. The petition was mentioned, and I think Ricardo was pondering its origin. So back in April, probably for April, May, June, July-ish, there were 20 to 25 people who were meeting on our own who were just interested in police reform and justice system reform. And we were having weekly meetings via Zoom discussing various issues. 4 or 5 of us split off from that group as a subgroup, and we met several times on Zoom and started working on that as a Google document, making those suggestions, edits. 3 people of that 4 or 5 person group are past complainants who have made complaints to the CPRB, so we're coming from a special perspective. I don't know how often your board receives feedback from complainants in the past. My guess is probably never in the past 10 years. But so that's where that petition came from. It wasn't just one person's thing. We pretty equally split the work. The petition was signed by 110 people, and it was presented to the City Council on June 25th. So there already was a presentation of some sorts. So anyways, that's just some history there. In regards to other things you were talking about tonight, I'm really confused what the board is trying to accomplish with this motion to City Council. If I understood correctly, this is a motion to ask the council a question about what the council from 13 years ago intended when they voted on the ordinance in regards to if video counts. It's not clear to me what you're not offering them an ordinance change to vote on. I don't think you're asking them a question. I don't quite get it. I mean, you can get an answer from them. It's not going to have changed your ordinance, and you're still going to have to deal with complaints that are possibly based on video. And my position on this is that you're all adults, you're educated. Some of you have legal educations. You have an ordinance, read it and act on it. You don't have to ask the council if you can have your buddies over for a sleepover tonight. Just do what's right. You can't roll over every time, corrupt staff from the city legal department try to throw a wrench in the efficacy of your board. They have their own interests, and their interests are postured contrary to the interests of the public. That's why we have a civilian board, so that you can do what's right for the public, because we don't trust the established portion of the government to do that. That's why you exist. There's nothing in the ordinance which indicates that having viewed something on video disqualifies that person as a complainant. It is in everyone's best interest that you cast a wider net to receive complaints. And I think the posture you should take in regards to these types of questions and issues is just ask the question, who's going to stop us? I don't see anyone's going to stop you from taking complaints from complainants who saw something on video. So just do it. I mean, it's the right thing to do. You guys also contemplated that the CPRB itself originating a complaint. And it sounded like you all decided tonight that that would be going a little too far out of your purview. And I think you've framed the question improperly by assuming that such a thing needs to be an action of the whole board. Any single member of the board can file a police complaint. You could do it tonight if you get pulled over by the police or whatever. Therefore, if any one of you witnessed a video, you could file a police complaint. It doesn't have to be a board decision. I could approach Ricardo privately and be like, hey, I had this really bad, incident. I took my cell phone out and video recorded it. And I could say, Ricardo, I don't feel comfortable complaining, but Ricardo can take the video and he can go file a complaint. This isn't a board question. This is an individual question. And so long as you're allowing complaints to be originated from video, any board member on the CPRB could be the complainant. Now, the only question you'd have to ask is, how do you handle the appeals process? You'd probably have to remove yourself from, the voting portion of that appeal. But I don't see that it's some complicated issue outside of your purview. So the last thing I wanted to bring up, and I should have mentioned earlier so it could be discussed, the issue of a complaint being put on hold because there is a pending legal matter. I emailed the CPRB members, I think I might have included a letter from Elizabeth Hannon indicating such a delay or a stop to the complaint. And Hannon's wording in that letter was something like, once that legal process is over, if the complainant wishes to do so, they may resume the complaint. And I don't understand why that's the language. It shouldn't be if the complainant wishes to do so. The complaint has been made. The complaint carries on after the legal process is over. There's no action that the complainant should have to take, to be watching the court dockets or whatever to see that pending matter is over. The city should just resume the complaint as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts. Next, we have comments from, I think, Tracy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Tracy Chong from Urbana. This is a follow-up from my question earlier in public input about the follow-through with Lieutenant Searles from UPD. It seemed like maybe you were unclear about which case I was talking about. I was talking about the taser discharge case where the drive stun was used, the case that was mentioned today by Scott Dossett. This case was reviewed on January 22nd, where CPRB board members questioned how little video was available. And you guys voted to approve the taser usage, but with the understanding that if there's more footage available, you guys want to see it. So yeah, if you guys need more information, just email me. Next, regarding today's discussion on the first-hand account, I'm very glad to see that you guys agree that someone should be able to file a complaint based on viewing video footage. This is a step in the right direction. Tony Allegretti's point that there is nothing in the ordinance as is prevents a complaint from being submitted just based on video is a very good one. I think this is an important point to make because it shows that city staff and UPD have already been improperly denying past complaints based on interpretations of the ordinance that suit their own interests. Based on the discussion today, it is actually unclear to me what you guys voted on, but personally, I agree with Tony's point that it might not be necessary to go to council to make a change in the ordinance, since as it is, the ordinance already does not prevent filing a complaint based on video footage. I would say instead, just go ahead and accept the complaints. And if UPD and the city decide to deny the complaints, then you guys should bring up their misconduct and make sure that it is clear to the city, to UPD, and the public that what they're doing is unacceptable. However, if you guys do decide that changing the ordinance to make it clearer in terms of video footage, that it is the path forward, then I really hope that if the city pushes back, that you guys fight back. It is almost a guaranteed thing that City Attorney James Simon will come in and make the same irrelevant arguments and points that he has made before. But please, please don't back down and don't give up. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Chung. Thank you for your thoughts. Emily, let's close.
Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Emily Close. I live in Champaign. I was present at Monday night City Council meeting, and I wanted to address a remark that Mr. Dossett made during his presentation. And I'm paraphrasing it, but I believe he said, we have a good working relationship with the police department. And that struck me as unusual because I think the relationship you should have as a board with the police department should be neutral. I interpret good as chummy. I don't like chummy when it comes to relationships between police officer and police command staff and members of a public body such as the CPRB. Your role is not just as an appeals board, but as an oversight board. I certainly don't like chummy or friendly when the police are given the power and authority to investigate themselves to begin with all the baggage and biases and limitations that involves. Yet it's the citizen who is dissatisfied with the result issued by the police chief that has to do the heavy lifting of filing an appeal with the CPRB. So the citizen already has an adversarial relationship with the police because nobody wants you to file a complaint to begin with, least of all the police and the city in general. So it sets up an even more adversarial relationship between the citizen and the police department when the citizen then files an appeal with you. So yes, I think your relationship with the police should be neutral. The good relationship I think you should strive for, in my opinion, is a relationship with the ordinance. I remember Mr. Dossett saying a few months ago, again, I'm paraphrasing, that the CPRB is in service to the ordinance. And this evening, Mr. Diaz made a statement about the ordinance. Is it adequate for the times? Well, I think there is an obvious answer to that. No, it is woefully inadequate. But I'm glad to see you're doing the hard work of reworking some of the language in the ordinance in the hopes that the council will address your concerns and make those changes. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your thoughts, Ms. Close. We are, I think, as I get to know our fellow members, we are doing our best, and it's not surprising to me that people just want to hear and take it to heart and want to do better. So we do appreciate it. We also appreciate the fact that you stick with us through this and this meeting, but in general, because there are changes that we want to make, and as we follow the steps up the ladder, we will get to the top on several of these. I'm confident and very happy to be working with this team. Are there any other comments or motion to adjourn?
You've got another hand up, Ricardo.
Thank you for letting me know. I had not gone up. Let me see. Evan Hensley. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Evan Hensley. I work with one of the local media organizations here in town, just over at Fox, Illinois. I'm doing a story talking about these new the positions that Lemon will have, as well as this human rights and equity officer. I was wondering if anybody could elaborate more on these positions and kind of explain to the public what all each of those two positions will be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hensley, for the question. Before we adjourn, can we, can anybody, well, I guess that's almost a Carol question, since we get the support, but we don't define what that support is. Are we in agreement, Carol? Or anybody else have anything to say, or should we leave this one to Carol?
I mean, I can handle this offline.
Okay. Thank you. Can you give us a short one and then call Mr. Hensley?
Sure.
What's the difference between the coordinator and the other, and the officer?
Well, the coordinator position is going to have more of this routine role with the CPRB, but be very active with the community. I mean, we fully expect that Lamond will continue his role with the Self-Made Kings and working with the youth. I think Lamond will be available to help the CPRB with more of your role as doing community outreach and engagement as well. So, and we have, there's a whole variety of things that we're hoping Lamond will be able to help us with, including connecting more with, some of the minority community around, helping us recruit for employment positions, helping us find more contractors, because we're about, and this is on the agenda for Monday, we're about to enter into an agreement with Champaign to participate in their diversity advancement program when it comes to contracting. So I'm hoping that Lamond will be able to assist with all of that, because one of the hallmarks of the work that we do in Urbana is people work in a more matrixed environment. So you work in a particular area, but you work across departments. So I'm hoping that, Lamond will be a resource for more than just the executive in that regard. So the Human Rights and Equity Officer will be your more senior staff person that is going to staff the Human Rights Commission, or I guess we're going to rename that too. And then also the CPRB. So you'll have, 2 levels of staff, and they'll be helping us engage on some, some of the more meaty issues surrounding discrimination and promoting racial equity. As you may have observed, we are about to join the Government Alliance for Racial Equity, which is called GARE. That was the outgrowth of a conversation that we had at a council meeting recently. And what GARE needs to be what we need to be successful with GARE is to have somebody who owns it and assists the rest of the government in connecting with the resources of GARE. So I see the Human Rights and Equity Officer as very much the person who will be on point for that. But there's also, there's a lot that we need to do internally. We need to update the procurement ordinance that we have that speaks to promoting equity among contractors, and then get to the point where we can actually have goals set aside for the number, the percentage of a job or whatever that will be reserved for minority contractors. The whole idea behind this certification program that we're tapping into with Champaign is to begin to understand where the contractors are, what lines of business are they in, so that we make appropriate set-asides because contractors are available, and we don't make set-asides if nobody is available other than, a traditional business to do that work. So there's an awful lot of work to be done in advancing racial equity in the city in a way that we've never really confronted it before. So again, I think that to some extent, the Human Rights Officer has been a little bit isolated from the rest of the government because they were in HR, and again, we're trying to work in a more matrixed fashion so that they will be working more actively with departments going forward. So I hope that's helpful. I'm happy to follow up with the gentleman.
Hensley.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave that follow-up to you. It was helpful actually to hear you through, because unless we're following all the council meetings, it's hard to figure out as things come up. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions or motion to adjourn?
I move that this meeting be adjourned.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded, and we have to take a roll call as we all say good night and thank you, everybody.
Tony Allegretti,
Yes.
Ricardo Diaz,
Thank you and good night.
Scott Dossett,
Yes.
Katrina Kendall,
Yes.
and Daryl Price.
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned until one of these two dates will come up for the hearings, and then the 28th of October. Thank you.